How do we like the new view? You see much more of me because I do have a new lens, and hopefully everything works out fine because today, as you've read in the title, I'm finally going to rank all the Glossgods palettes that I own, which are oh, 8. Let me just start off by saying that even though some of these palettes are maybe ranked very low in those 8 to rank, it does not mean that they're bad. It's all about color preference, it's all about what you love to wear, and there are just certain color stories that I like to have in my collection just for that moment that I want to use them, but are not my favorite, and I would not consider a palette I would re-buy instantly as soon as I don't know, lose all my makeup because of a fire, whatever. Shameless advertisement here. I am affiliated with Glossgods. I started my affiliate relationship with them late 2023, so all of the palettes I bought before that. But if you consider buying something from Glossgods, it would mean the world to me if you use my code, which is Ella Kinkley. It is also the links and stuff all down in the description box in case you forget what my name is. As I said, all of these are purchased myself, and just because I do have an affiliate code with them does not mean that my opinion is biased. It's more so that I annoyed the shit out of them because I wanted to be part of their program because I just love the quality so much. At number 8, we have the What's Your Power palette. This came out last year, I think in spring or so. And as per usual for a spring release, this is a pastel palette. This was the first palette I actually tried from Glossgods, and that actually made me fall in love with them. And I still stand by the fact that pastels are not for me. I like having them in my collection. I like having the option to pull in a pastel, but it's just overall not for me. The quality though is amazing, but I have to admit that this palette, out of those that I tried, is actually more on the weaker side of formulation for whatever reason, because I don't think that they changed the formulation a lot in this compared to other palettes, because I also have palettes that came out before this, but something is just not working in here that makes me enjoy pastels even less. And I have to admit that this What's Your Power palette is actually the one that I have the most critique with because of the formulation. Everything else that is now following here, they do not have, in my opinion, flaws in quality. But I will talk about their very specific quality when it comes to certain shades here a little bit more in depth in the next palettes. Because on number 7 we have the new neutrals. And this is only so far down because it's a neutral palette, and that's it. Oh my god, that's the only reason why this is at number 7. It is just a plain neutral palette. It is a warm leaning neutral palette. I'm not the biggest fan of warm neutrals, but I love the quality. The mattes in here, completely different to the What's Your Power palette. Much, much better, much, much softer and easy to blend. And these shimmers, I think I said it or wrote it in my review on Instagram that this has potential to be one of my favorite neutral palettes in general. Not compared to my whole collection, as you've seen in my end of year ranking in December, but just looking at this makes me happy. And I hope you can see this here in the video too. It has different textures. So this is the kind of neutral shade. This is a flaky shade. You know, I always talk about your typical indie flaky multi-chrome shadow. This is a step up. But it's not that flaky as, for example, in Adept Minka palettes. It is kind of a mix in between Adept Minka and Odin's Eye, those very, very gritty, rough shimmers. I really enjoy this formulation a fucking lot because, oh, you know, yes, that's it. This, now I have it. It reminds me a lot of the Nessa Myricks Infinite Chrome Flakes, the one in the pot. This is what this reminds me of, like a pressed version of this. You can do it very opaque in one swipe, but if you just tap it, you have this structured and textured look on the lids that I personally really enjoy. But then you also have shades like this one, Never Shy, or this one, Winning Together, that are just very, very soft, velvety metallics or duochromes. Let's talk about number 6, and this is the Girl on the Moon palette that actually was re-released and I think reformulated now for the winter release, where some other palettes came out with it, I'm going to talk about later in this ranking. But this is the first Girl on the Moon, or not first girl, but okay, this is quite confusing because I think the re-released palette is called First Girl on the Moon, and this is only Girl on the Moon, but it's basically a re-released version of this. I really enjoy this palette, but for whatever reason, everything else from Glossgods is just a tad bit better. And you know, it's quite surprising because you know me and blues, we love each other very much. There is just something about this palette that gives me a bit of a hard time to use it, but just from looking at it, I get super excited. And I love the way how these colors are arranged because you have this blue, but it's not very monochromatic blue, you know? There is still some shift and some changes going on with Moonquake that is more on the green side. Eclipse is very green. Then you have a purple region over here. And this one here, this rusty kind of green, I can't even describe the shape because there is like green and gold, but also cool tones in there. It is a really cool palette, but the others just give me more joy. At number 5, we have the Dancing in the Sky palette. This is a very confusing palette to me because it says Dancing in the Sky, but the packaging and the writing is green, and guess what? It's green on the inside, but it's a beautiful kind of bluish green to golden to purple back to greeny shades. Wonderful palette. I think this is a very, very good green multi-chrome duochrome metallic color story that gives you enough of a depth level also to use this as your only shimmer palette and maybe throw in a bronzer in the crease or whatever if you don't want to go with a green matte shade too. But you can probably tell by the way how this looks that I haven't used it that much because greens I like. And I like this Dancing in the Sky palette better than the other 3 in the ranking. But for whatever reason, I'm just currently not very attracted to greens. I don't know what it is, but I'm not in the green vibe at the moment. But I hope I will be back in the green vibe and I can't wait to use this palette. At number 4, and as far as I know, this is also a re-released palette. This is the First Girl on Mars palette. Another monochromatic all metallic palette, but with rats. You guys. Rats and fires and orange and green and a bit of pink, and I have no words, and I always try to, you know, shift the palette the whole time so that you can hopefully see all the shifts in this palette. This is such a masterpiece of a red monochromatic shimmer eyeshadow palette. No additional words here. The texture it is. Look at Life on Mars. This is again one of those gritty flakes, but then you have with Gravity a very velvet satin-like shade, but that has the impact of a liquid metal on your eye. They're just awesome. And I'm pretty sure if you have watched any other of my Glossgods like mini tutorials that I did over on Instagram, or if you have seen the posts that I have done with Glossgods palettes, you know what my top 3 are. Number 3, and this is a palette that is so pretty that I have hit pan in a shade in here. And I try to sell you this as a big achievement, but you probably already know that when you have those, again, I say the typical indie flakes, they're quite easy to pan, like a Colourpop Super Shock shadow or highlighter. They're super easy to pan because they just mush aside, they move in the pan. This is the Look for Rainbows palette, and oh, I forgot to show you. The Look for Rainbows palette, here's the inside. This is a very interesting twist on typical rainbow shimmers, in my opinion, because it is rainbowy, colorful, but it kind of still stays in a very certain vibe, in my opinion, because you have, you have your purples, you have weirds and reds, then you have again some purple bluish things, and then you have some lighter shades and a very intense blue. This is not a typical rainbow, but this is a rainbow when it's still raining. I don't know if this is how I can describe what I see with this palette, but it's probably that. These shades are so incredibly stunning that although I know it better and that my fingers are going to be a hot mess afterwards, let me just show you my favorite shades out of this palette, because one, definitely being over here, Happy Skies. I want to lick my finger now. And Reflection, because this is a red pink. I don't know what draws me so much into this shade, but these two, stunning. They're amazing. I love them. I want to swatch them on my face, but the problem is I have to go out today, so I can't swatch them on my face. The palette that I now decided to rank at number 2 was number 1 for the longest time until the new number 1 came in town. You know what I mean. You probably know what I'm talking about because I said it already on Instagram. But number 2 now is The Color of Rainbow. And I'm very, very sorry to rank it that high because I am pretty sure that this is now forever sold out. Hopefully they will restock that in their January restock too, because somewhat around this month there is going to be a restock on the palettes on the website. I hope this will be part of it. Because The Color of the Rain was a unfortunately limited edition palette that came out in the summer together with the Lavender Skies palette. Lavender Skies I actually decluttered because pastel lavender shades is not my vibe. So I was a bit disappointed in the palette, not for quality reasons, it was only the color story. But this Color of the Rain palette, when I open this now, please promise me that you sit right up, you have a seatbelt on or something like that, because this is going to knock you out of your fucking chair. Look at this. Oh my god. This is so pretty. And I don't know when I already said this, but I'm having a major deja vu moment now. The fact that they only put a matte black in here is one of the most clever palette design things that I have ever seen. Because all of these shades, they look incredibly on top of your skin, no matter what skin tone you have underneath or skin color underneath. But you can transform all of them by having a black underneath. Absolutely incredible. And I don't even know what shade to show you because everything in this palette is outstandingly stunning. But of course, you need to see Water Prism. Oh boy. And then you need to see Raindrop. Oh. Holy fucking smokes. And let's also say Drizzling. I am 100% sure that the camera is reflecting in my finger. That's how fucking shiny, sparkly they are. Let me just do some, quick. Can you look me straight in the eye and tell me that these are not the 3 most incredible shades that you have ever seen? And you might think now, why, when I'm raving so much about this palette, is this only at number 2? And the reason is quite simple. Convenience. Because is it clever that there is only black? Fuck yeah. But is this something I can use every day? Yeah, but I don't want to. That's the thing. Because with a black matte, you surprisingly end up with quite a dark look always. By the way, I'm cleaning my hand while I talk to you so I can swatch some shades of number 1 too. You will just always end up with a very, very dark look, which makes sense because this is a storm cloud, weather, rainy, I don't know, like the world is ending type of palette. And I love that. But there are just days where I want to use this, yes, but I pull in some other mattes from other palettes. That's the only reason why this is only at number 2 and the other palette made it to the number 1. I also have to admit that this is probably my number 1 palette because a lot of my taste just very, very radically changed in the past, let's say 1.5 years. I was very, very stuck still in makeup 2016. That means warm creases, warm browns, warm colors in general, because I'm not a neutral brown girl, but everything just kind of shifted because I personally just enjoy cool tones much more when it comes to matte eyeshadows in general. And Glossgods, in their winter release, released the first Girl on Jupiter palette. And when I saw this color story on Instagram, it was absolutely clear that I needed to buy this. And that's what I mean. My taste just changed a lot, and I'm leaning so much more towards cool tones currently than I used to do 1 year or 1.5 years ago. This palette, you guys, this is a wet dream. I don't kid you. Orion Octavia, as it is in here, is the first holographic shade that is holoing without a low light situation or without a flashlight that points directly towards it. Only thing that I don't like is the fact that they rearranged this palette, because their initial palette design was mattes and shimmers mixed up, but some people were very whiny and complained, and then they rearranged it so you have all 5 mattes and then the rest 9 shimmers in after each other. I could swatch all the shimmers now, but I have to go in a couple minutes, so I don't have, unfortunately, time for that. But I, of course, swatched for you Orion Octavia. Then we have over here Interstellar Icon and Eileen's Authority. These shades, you guys, look at this. Interstellar Icon, which is the very, very visible silver, is one of the most intense silver eyeshadows I have ever seen. Their formulation over at Glossgods must be on crack. Now, you might want to know, hey Ella, you love Glossgods so much, but in one of your rankings you also said that Cleonat multichromes are your favorite and that nothing can beat them. How do you compare them? I don't know if actually anybody would ask this question, but I actually imagine people asking how they compare to Cleonat. First of all, I want to say, yes, Cleonat has a completely different vibe going on, so you cannot buy the singles in Glossgods. So if you want to have pre-built palettes with the possibility of also having some mattes in there, of course, I will always say, then go for Glossgods if you had to decide. In general, I can very boldly say that the formulation of Glossgods multichromes is close to Cleonat. None of the Cleonat shades that you could try are somewhat in those flaky formulation. Let me just take the color of the rain. Is that, yeah, like your water prism, droplets. I hope you can see that also in Raindrop with those flakes, as I just said. Cleonat has a very, very different texture, but the impact that is left on the eye from these is very similar to Cleonat. And I don't mean this in any disrespectful way or in a bad way at all, but I think Glossgods is actually a more affordable version of Cleonat multichromes. That is truly how much I enjoy these. And I can understand that somebody probably does not want to spend 15 or 16 or 26 money on a Cleonat eyeshadow. They can be very, very expensive. All of these palettes, it does not matter which one, they all retail for around about 40-41 euro. Which is, when you just look at the quality in what you get, absolutely amazeballs. They also had an advent calendar last year that a friend of mine had, and I saw an unboxing, of course, over on her Instagram channel, but I also saw an unboxing on YouTube from a Swedish creator, and I was happy to skip that because the 2 big palettes that were inside the calendar I already had, and one of them I already decluttered, and the things that were just in between, I was not very interested in that. Although I have to say that I only heard good things about their brushes, and they also They also do have liquid contour, I think it is. That seems to look very, very nice, so I might try this after my no-buy. And then they also have cake liners, which according to my friend are quite good. I think I didn't say this in the intro because I was just so excited to talk about the palettes, but Glossgods is a Swedish indie brand. I personally think that with the launch of their, for example, First Girl on Jupiter palette, there's also in that collection a First Girl on Venus palette. That is just not my vibe. It is red, which I like, but it's mainly orange and very neon-y. That's why I skipped that palette. But I think with that release, they kind of made their way to the public. And I feel especially the First Girl on Jupiter palette got a lot of attention from people who never knew the brand, who never tried the brand, that they now reach out and want to try the brand. And if you are one of those that wants to try the brand, I can just repeat myself. I do have things in my lashes that that are itching. No, I do have an affiliate code with them. I'm very, very happy if you use that. You can save 5%. I make some commissions. That means I get some money from your purchase, but of course you don't have to pay extra so that I get money. So what do you think? Have you tried Glossgods? Is maybe 2024 the year that you want to try them? If so, I cannot recommend it enough. And I personally expect great palettes from Glossgods, and I always said that in the beginning of the years that there will probably be a certain brand that will stand out in a year, and I truly hope that 2024 is going to be the year of Glossgods. So thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe because, you know, fun stuff and shit and blah 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 blah, and I hope I can see you in the next one.